I hunched over my laptop, my fingers hammering the keys, racing against a deadline that loomed like a storm cloud. The open plan office at TechCorp buzzed around mechie boards, clacked in a relentless staccato, phones shrilled, and voices overlapped in a dull roar. Coffee and printer ink hung heavy in the air, the fluorescent lights casting a sterile glare over the chaos. 3 years as a systems engineer here, and I'd learned to tune it out, but today, something cut through the noise. Movement snagged my eye. Jake, my boss, weaved through the maze of desks, his stride loose, almost cocky. Too casual for a Wednesday grind. He was headed for Amelia's desk, just 10 feet away. My fiancée sat there, her dark hair glinting under the harsh light, her focus locked on her screen. 3 months until our wedding. Then she'd switch department's company rules for couples. For now, she was close. Too close. Jake stopped, looming over her desk, his shadow swallowing her screen. "Hey, Amelia," he murmured, voice low, barely audible over the office hum. My fingers froze mid-keystroke. Jake always barked last names, Miller, Carter, Hayes-like, a drill sergeant. This was soft, intimate. He leaned in, lips inches from her ear, his breath stirring her hair. Amelia stiffened, her shoulders locking for a heartbeat. Then she eased back, a tight smile flickering across her face. Her eyes darted left, right, then straight to me. I snapped my gaze back to my laptop, heart kicking hard against my ribs. What the hell was that? The code on my screen blurred as Jake's whisper replayed in my mind. Words lost, but tone sharp too familiar, too personal. Amelia's laugh followed, a shaky little sound, not her usual bright burst. I risked a glance. Jake straightened, his hand grazing her shoulder a second too long before he sauntered off, that swagger back in full force. Amelia's fingers hesitated over her keys, then resumed, faster now, like she needed to bury something. The air shifted, a cold draft from the AC slicing through the stuffy warmth. I shivered, but it wasn't the chill prickling my skin. It was her glance, quick, guilty, checking if I'd seen. I had. Every damn second of it. My pulse thudded, a dull drumbeat in my ears. Maybe it was nothing. Work stuff, hush for privacy, but Jake didn't whisper to anyone else. And Amelia? She didn't blush like that over code reviews. I stared at my screen, words swimming. Why her first name? Why so close? Memories flickered, Jake lingering by her desk last week. Amelia staying late for a project. My jaw tightened. I wasn't the type to storm over, demand answers. Not yet. But the doubt gnawed, sharp and relentless. I'd watch, I'd wait, and when the truth slipped out, I'd be ready. The private investigation office sat above a laundromat, a cramped space where the faint rumble of dryers vibrated through the floor. Stacks of yellowed folders cluttered every surface, and the air carried the stale scent of coffee grounds and dust. A flickering neon sign outside threw jagged shadows across the room. I had been coming here for weeks, clocking freelance hours at a chip desk, entering data from Mike's cases. It was tedious, but it bought me what I needed. Access. Mike slid a thin folder across his desk, his chair groaning under his bulk. "You sure about this, kid?" His voice rasped like sandpaper, eyes sharp and probing. I gave a tight nod, words stuck in my throat. Mike shrugged, tapping the folder once. "Your funeral. Just don't say I didn't warn you." I snatched it, my pulse thudding in my ears. I didn't crack it open until I was back in my car, doors locked, the hum of streetlights overhead. My fingers trembled as I lifted the cover. Photos tumbled out, grainy shots stamped with dates and times. Amelia and Jake caught in hotel lobbies, parking lots, her silver sedan nosing into dark corners. One image showed them laughing, his hand low on her back, her face tilted up, glowing. Another had them ducking through a side door, his arm slung over her like she was his. Timestamps glared, 2:17 p.m., 3:45 p.m. hours when she was supposed to be at work. While I wrestled code, they were here, doing this. I slammed the folder shut. My chest heaved, breath short and sharp. It wasn't real. Couldn't be. But the proof sat there, cold as stone. I pressed my forehead to the steering wheel, the leather cool against my skin. How long had this been going on? Every late night, every client call, were they laughing behind my back the whole time? At home, I spread the photos across the kitchen table, the apartment quiet except for the fridge's low drone. Amelia was out another work thing. I poured a whiskey, the glass clinking as I drank it down fast. The burn didn't touch the pain. I picked up a photo, staring hard. Jake's smirk, Amelia's flush, they looked too comfortable, too easy together. My gut twisted. I needed more evidence, more answers. I grabbed my laptop, logging into the freelance portal Mike had set me up with. The PI had shown me the basic tracking metadata, cross-referencing locations. I wasn't an expert, but I was desperate. I pulled their office schedules, lining them up with the photos. A pattern jumped out. Tuesdays and Thursdays, they disappeared for an hour, sometimes two. Always the same spotted cheap hotel downtown. Low rent lies. Days melted together. I'd leave my day job at 5, hit the PI office, and bury myself in data. Mike watched, silent, maybe recognizing the look of a man unraveling. Nights, I sat in the dark, laptop screen casting blue light across my face, Amelia's old laughter ringing in my head. She'd drift in late, reeking of wine and floral perfume, and I'd mutter, "Rough day?" She'd peck my cheek, all casual. Yeah, deadlines are brutal. The lies flowed smooth as silk. Then I found out a text thread, screenshots Mike had dug up from a burner phone. Amelia's number, Jake's words. "Missed you already. Thursday can't come soon enough. Nolan onto us?" My blood froze. Her reply hit like a punch. "Nolan's clueless. Relax. Sent 2 days ago." I shoved the laptop back, pacing the room. My fist clenched, nails biting into my palms. Clueless. That's what she thought of me. Rage surged, hot and wild. I grabbed my phone, thumb over her name. I could call now, scream, rip into her. But no, they'd expect that. The messy meltdown. I had to be smarter. Calculated. I sat, forcing my breathing to slow. Tomorrow was the happy hour. I'd planned it every step, every word. They pay. But first, one last piece. I pulled up the hotel's booking system using Mike's tricks. There it was, room 204, Jake's name, every Tuesday and Thursday, 3 months running. My jaw locked, teeth grinding. Tomorrow, I'd walk into that bar, face them, and dismantle their lies. Tonight, though, I'd let the fury build, let it sharpen. When I hit, it'd be clean, deadly, and they'd never see it coming. I woke up with the plan locked in my head, my jaw tight as I stared at the ceiling. The apartment was too bright, sunlight slicing through the blinds, casting sharp lines across the bed. Amelia stirred beside me, her arm brushing mine, but I didn't move, couldn't, not today. She yawned, stretching like a cat, and rolled over, her voice soft, sleepy. "Morning, babe. You okay?" "Yeah," I muttered, the word clipped, flat. I swung my legs out of bed, avoiding her gaze. She propped herself up, frowning, her dark hair spilling over her shoulders. "You sure? You've been weird lately." I grabbed my phone from the nightstand, thumbing through it like I had a message. "Work's just busy." She sighed, the sound heavy with doubt. But I didn't care. Let her wonder. Let her squirm. The kitchen smelled of coffee and toast, the hum of the fridge filling the silence between us. I poured a cup, black, no sugar, and leaned against the counter, watching her. She moved through the routine spooning oatmeal, slicing fruit like everything was normal, like she wasn't lying through her teeth every day. "You're quiet," she said, glancing up. "Something on your mind?" I sipped the coffee, scalding my tongue. "Nope." Her eyes narrowed, but she let it drop, turning back to her breakfast. "Good. I wasn't in the mood to fake it anymore. I showered fast, the water pounding my skin, steam fogging the mirror. My reflection looked back eyes hard, mouth set. I dressed in jeans and a button-down, nothing flashy. Just another guy heading to a team happy hour. But inside, I was coiled tight, a spring ready to snap. The photos sat in my bag, tucked between folders, their edges sharp against my fingers as I zipped it shut. Amelia pecked my cheek on her way out, her perfume lingering. "See you at the bar," she chirped all sunshine. I forced a smile. "Yeah, see you." The day dragged, each minute stretching like taffy. At work, I buried myself in code, the screen a blur of numbers and commands. Jake swaggered by once, twice, his laugh grating on my nerves. He didn't look at me. Didn't need to. He thought he'd won. Thought I was clueless. My fists clenched under the desk, nails biting into my palms. Not for long. 5 o'clock hit and the office emptied, chatter rising as people grabbed coats and bags. I lingered, pretending to finish an email, my heart thudding in my chest. The bar was a 10-minute walk, a trendy spot with dim lights and overpriced drinks. I scoped it out last week, knew the layout where the team would sit, where I'd stand. Every detail mattered. I grabbed my bag, the weight of the photos pressing against my back, and headed out. The city buzzed around me, cars honking, pedestrians weaving past. My phone buzzed Amelia. "Running late, be there soon," I didn't reply. Let her think I was already there, mingling, clueless as ever. The bar's neon sign flickered as I approached, the door swinging open to laughter and clinking glasses. I stepped inside, the air thick with the scent of fried food and spilled beer. Our team had claimed a corner, a sprawl of tables pushed together, littered with half-empty pitchers. Jake held court at the head, his arm draped over a chair, grinning like a king. Amelia wasn't there yet. Perfect. I grabbed a beer, the bottle cool against my palm, and took a seat near the edge, close enough to watch, far enough to stay unnoticed. My coworkers chattered office gossip, weekend plans, but their voices faded to static. I sipped the beer, the bitter taste grounding me. My eyes flicked to the door every few seconds, waiting. Then she walked in, her laugh bright, her hair catching the light. She scanned the room, spotting Jake first, her smile widening. My grip tightened on the bottle. She made her way over, dropping her bag beside him, leaning in to whisper something. He chuckled, his hand grazing her arm. My stomach churned. I stood, slow, deliberate, my pulse roaring in my ears. The photos burned in my bag, but I left them for now. I needed to time it right. Let them relax, think they were safe. Then I'd strike. Jake raised his glass, his voice booming. "To the team. Best damn engineers in the city." Cheers erupted, glasses clinking. I lifted mine, my smile tight, eyes locked on him. He didn't notice, but he would. Soon. Tonight, I'd tear their world apart, and I'd savor every second. I stepped into the bar, the door swinging shut behind me with a soft thud that barely registered over the clamor inside. The air hung heavy, thick with the mingled scents of fried food, stale cigarette smoke, and the sharp tang of spilled beer. Dim lights buzzed overhead, casting long shadows across the worn wooden floor, flickering just enough to make the room feel alive, restless. Laughter and chatter crashed together in a relentless wave, grating against my nerves like sandpaper. My heart thudded against my rib cage, a fierce, unsteady drumbeat of anger and anticipation, each pulse urging me forward. I scanned the room, my eyes narrowing as they landed on our team, sprawled across the corner tables, shoved together in a haphazard cluster, littered with half-empty pitchers, crumpled napkins, and the faint sheen of condensation rings. Jake held court at the head, his arm draped casually over the back of a chair, his grin wide and self-assured, like he owned every inch of this place. Beside him sat Amelia, her dark hair catching the faint glow of the lights, her laugh bright and unrestrained, slicing through me like a shard of glass. My stomach churned, a tight knot of fury twisting tighter with every second I stood there, watching them. I moved to the bar first, my boots scuffing against the sticky floor. My hands trembled slightly as I grabbed a beer, the bottle cool and slick against my palm, its weight a small anchor in the storm raging inside me. I carried it to the edge of the group, choosing a seat close enough to keep them in my sights, far enough to stay unnoticed for now. My bag rested heavy on my lap, the photos inside pressing against the fabric like a loaded gun, primed and waiting. I took a sip of the beer, the bitter taste coating my tongue, grounding me as I settled in to wait. My eyes stayed fixed on them, Jake and Amelia, oblivious to the ticking clock I set in motion. Minutes dragged on, each one stretching into an eternity. I watched as Jake leaned in close to Amelia, his lips moving near her ear, whispering something that made her head tilt back with a laugh, her hand brushing his arm. My grip tightened on the bottle, my knuckles whitening, the glass creaking faintly under the pressure. They thought they were untouchable, thought I was still the fool in the dark. Not tonight. Not anymore. Then Jake stood, his chair scraping back against the floor. He raised his glass high, the amber liquid catching the light as he grinned down at the team. "To the best damn team in the city," he boomed, his voice cutting through the noise like a gunshot. "And especially to our star engineers, Nolan and Amelia. Couldn't do it without you." Cheers erupted, a ragged chorus of hoots and hollers, glasses clinking together in a messy symphony. Amelia beamed, her eyes flicking to Jake, then darting away as a flush crept up her neck. I lifted my glass, my lips twisting into a tight, brittle smile, my gaze locked on him. He didn't notice the ice in my stare, the way my hand shook just enough to betray the storm beneath my calm. Not yet. I set my beer down, the clink of glass on wood swallowed by the din. My pulse roared in my ears, a relentless thrum that drowned out the laughter, the chatter, the clatter of the bar. It was time. I stood, slow and deliberate, my legs heavy as if I were wading through deep water. The room seemed to shrink around me, the noise fading to a dull hum, a distant echo. I moved toward them, each step measured, my breath shallow and ragged in my chest. My hands clenched into fists at my sides, nails digging into my palms, the sting keeping me sharp. Jake glanced up as I approached, his grin faltering for a split second, a crack in his polished facade. "Nolan, buddy, come join us." He gestured to an empty chair beside him, his tone too cheerful, too forced, like he could sense the shift in the air but didn't want to name it. I stopped beside him, close enough to smell his cologne sharp, expensive, the same scent I caught on Amelia's clothes more times than I could count. "Hey, Jake," I said, my voice low, steady, barely above a whisper, but it carried the weight of everything I'd held back for weeks. "Got a minute?" He blinked, confusion flickering across his face, his glass still raised halfway to his lips. "Sure, man, what's up?" His eyes darted to Amelia, then back to me, a sliver of unease creeping into his expression. Subtle but there. I leaned in, my breath hot against his ear, my words a blade slipping between his ribs. "I'm about to expose your affair with Amelia." They came out cold, sharp, deliberate, each syllable laced with the venom I'd been choking down for too long. His eyes widened, his mouth opening, but no sound escaped, just a sharp intake of breath, like I'd knocked the wind out of him. I could see the gears turning, panic flashing behind that smug confidence, unraveling him in an instant. I straightened, turning to Amelia. Her face had gone pale, her fingers gripping her glass so tightly her knuckles gleamed white under the dim lights. "And you," I hissed, my voice dripping with contempt. "Sleeping with my boss while wearing my ring? Real classy." Her lips parted, a small, choked sound escaping, but I didn't give her the chance to speak. The air in the bar went still, the team's chatter dying out like a flame snuffed under glass. A few heads turned, brows furrowing, eyes narrowing as they sensed the tension rippling outward. I reached into my bag, my fingers brushing the glossy edges of the photo's grainy shots from a private investigator, time-stamped, undeniable. I pulled them out, slapping them into their hands, keeping them private for now, just between us. "Your lives are over," I whispered, my voice ice, my gaze flicking between them, watching the realization sink in. Amelia stared at the photos, her breath catching in her throat, her eyes wide and glistening. Nolan, wait, this isn't. Her voice trembled, cracking on the last word, her hands shaking as she clutched the evidence. Jake recovered first, his jaw clenching, his face flushing red. This is a misunderstanding, man. You've got it all wrong. His tone was sharp, defensive, but his eyes betrayed him. Fear, guilt, the desperate look of a man caught with no way out. His hand tightened around his glass, the liquid sloshing slightly. I stepped back, my heart pounding, adrenaline surging through my veins like fire. Save it, I snapped, loud enough for the team to hear now, my voice cutting through the silence. Head swiveled, eyes widening, a few gasps breaking the stillness. I've got proof, hotel receipts, texts, photos, it's over. The bar fell deathly quiet, the only sounds the faint hum of the jukebox in the corner and the clatter of a dropped fork somewhere behind me. My coworkers stared, some with jaws slack, others exchanging quick, uneasy glances, unsure whether to intervene or shrink back. Jake's fists balled at his sides, his chest heaving. You're making a mistake, Nolan. This'll ruin you too. I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound that echoed in the stillness, raw and unfiltered. I'm already ruined. You made sure of that. I turned on my heel, striding toward the door, the weight of their stares pressing against my back like a physical force. Amelia's voice broke through, shaky and desperate, reaching for me. Nolan, please. But I didn't stop. I shoved the door open, the cool night air hitting my face like a slap, sharp and bracing. I stepped into the street, my hands shaking, my breath coming in ragged gasps, the adrenaline still burning through me. Behind me, the bar stayed silent for a moment longer before the murmurs started, whispers, arguments, the chaos I'd left in my wake. I didn't look back. It was done. They'd pay. And I'd watch it all burn from a distance, the satisfaction bitter but undeniable. The apartment was dead quiet, the kind of stillness that presses in on you, makes your thoughts too loud. I sat on the edge of the couch, staring at the half-eaten pizza on the coffee table, the smell of pepperoni and cardboard hanging in the air. Outside, the city hummed cars, distant sirens, the faint buzz of life moving on. Inside, it was just me and the shadows stretching across the bare walls. No pictures, no clutter. Just a framed photo of a mountain I'd climbed years ago, back when things made sense. The evening light slipped through the blinds, casting thin stripes across the floor like bars on a cage. My phone buzzed, snapping me out of the haze. I glanced at the screen. Amelia. My chest tightened. I hadn't heard her voice in months, not since the lawyers hashed out the settlement. I let it ring once, twice, then picked up, my thumb hovering over the speaker button before I hit it. Nolan? Her voice was small, hesitant, like she wasn't sure I'd answer. It's me. I leaned back, the couch creaking under my weight. What do you want, Amelia? My tone was flat, guarded. I wasn't in the mood for games. She took a breath, the sound shaky through the line. I just wanted to talk. It's been a while, and I thought what? I cut in, sharper than I meant to. That we'd catch up like old friends? No, She paused and plunged ahead. I've been working at a nightclub trying to pay off the debts from everything. It's been hard, but I'm managing. I clenched my jaw, the memory of the lawsuit flashing hot in my mind, the compensation, the hollow victory. And, I prompted, my voice tight. And I heard about Jake, she said, her words tumbling out faster now. He started his own business, some IT consulting thing, and it's doing really well. He and Sarah are back together too. They're happy. My stomach dropped, a cold, sick feeling spreading through me. Jake? Thriving? After what he did? I shot to my feet, pacing the room, my free hand curling into a fist. So he just gets to move on? Like nothing happened? My voice rose, anger seeping through the cracks of my control. Amelia's reply was barely a whisper. I guess so. I thought you should know. I stopped by the window, staring out at the city lights flickering to life. My reflection stared back, eyes hard, mouth set in a thin line. They thought they could bury it, start over. Not if I had anything to say about it. I took a breath, forcing my voice to steady. Amelia, you're working nights in some club while he's out there living the dream? That's not right. She sighed, the sound heavy with exhaustion. I know, but what can I do? It's over, Nolan. We all have to move on. Move on? The words tasted like ash. I leaned against the window frame, my mind racing. This wasn't over, not for me, not yet. Maybe you don't have to, I said, my tone shifting, softer, coaxing. Maybe there's still a way to make things right. What do you mean? Her voice perked up, a flicker of curiosity breaking through the weariness. I chose my words carefully, each one a hook. You're better than this, Amelia. You're smart, talented. You shouldn't be scraping by while he's out there winning. Maybe you should remind him of what he's missing. There was a pause, the line crackling faintly. Remind him how? I could almost see her, brow furrowed, chewing her lip like she did when she was thinking. Go after him, I said, my voice low, persuasive. Show him you're the one he really wants. You know him better than Sarah ever could. You were his right hand, his partner in everything. Her breath hitched. You think he'd take me back? Absolutely. I leaned into it, the lie sliding off my tongue like silk. You're the one who got away, Amelia. He's probably regretting it every day. You just need to make him see it. She was quiet for a moment, the silence thick with possibility. Maybe you're right, she murmured, more to herself than to me. Maybe I should try. I reached for my phone, my thumb brushing the screen as I discreetly hit record. Tell me more about his business, I said, keeping my tone casual, like I was just making conversation. What's he up to now? She launched into it, her voice gaining strength as she described his new venturesome, flashy IT consulting firm, big clients, fancy office downtown. I nodded along, letting her words flow, my eyes on the recording timer ticking up. Every detail she spilled was another nail in their coffin. When she finally trailed off, I stopped the recording, a tight smile tugging at my lips. Thanks for the update, Amelia. You've given me a lot to think about. Me too, she said, a hint of determination creeping into her voice. Maybe it's time I took control of my life again. We hung up, and I stood there, staring at the phone in my hand. The knot in my stomach tightened, a mix of satisfaction and something darker, something that tasted like guilt. This was a dangerous game, and I was dragging her back into the fire. But she'd made her choice long ago. They both had. I walked to the window, pressing my forehead against the cool glass. The city stretched out below, a sprawl of lights and shadows, indifferent to the chaos I was about to unleash. My reflection wavered in the glass, eyes shadowed, jaw clenched. I'd set the wheels in motion. Now I just had to watch them spin. I was hunched over my desk, the laptop's pale glow washing over my hands when the news hit. The office was still, most of the team had clocked out, chasing drinks or dinners. I stayed, drowning in cold, trying to silence the unease gnawing at me since my call with Amelia. The television in the corner hummed with stock ticks and weather updates until a sharp tone sliced through. Breaking news, the anchor barked, voice tight and urgent. I looked up, fingers frozen mid-keystroke. The screen flashed to a live feed smoke pouring from a suburban house, flames clawing at the roof, the sky bruised orange. My gut twisted. I knew that street, had driven it countless times. The camera tightened on the chaos. Firefighters yelling, hoses spitting water, neighbors huddled, faces ashen. The anchor's words cut deeper. A house fire in Westfield has killed 2 and left 1 critical. Arson is suspected. Details are emerging. My breath snagged, sweat beading cold on my skin. Westfield Jake's turf. I snatched the remote, jacking the volume. heart slamming my ribs. A reporter appeared, grim-faced Mike in a death grip. Victims identified: Sarah Thompson, 32, and her son, Ethan, dead on site. Jake Thompson, 35, is critical with burns and injuries. The names slammed me like a freight train. Sarah, Ethan, gone. Jake hanging by a thread. The room spun. I gripped my desk, knuckles bleaching, fighting to stay upright. The reporter's voice blurred into static, drowned by the pulse pounding in my skull. This wasn't the plan. Not them. I lurched back, chair screeching against the floor, jarring in the empty office. Dark screens and tucked-in chairs mocked me. I was alone with this nightmare. The television panned to the ruin. Blackened beams, broken glass, a home gutted. Then a mugshot Amelia. Gaunt, eyes dead. Amelia Carter, 29, arrested for arson and murder. She confessed at the scene. My knees gave. I collapsed into my chair, breath shallow, ragged. Amelia? The woman I'd goaded, recorded, pushed past breaking sheets shattered. But Sarah, Ethan, they weren't targets. Guilt clawed up my throat, thick and sour. I'd craved payback, not this, not a kid. The door creaked. Lily stepped in, brow creased. Nolan, you okay? You're white as a sheet? Her voice was gentle, but it echoed from a distance. I couldn't form words. I jabbed a shaky finger at the television. She followed, eyes ballooning as the carnage sank in. Oh my God, she breathed, hand clamping her mouth. That's Jake's place, right? I nodded, voice a rasp. Yeah, Amelia, she did it. Lily's face drained, darting between me and the screen. What? Why? I cut her off, words tumbling, raw and broken. I pushed her, told her to hit back at him, take him down. I taped her, used her, and now my voice splintered, guilt crushing me. They're dead. Lily closed the gap, her hand firm on my shoulder. Nolan, this isn't on you. You didn't make her do it. But I had. I'd sparked it, even if I didn't strike the flame. I stared at the television, fire still flickering in the wreckage, a brutal echo of my overreach. My revenge had roared out of control, consuming everything. Now I was left with the ashes. The cemetery stretched out beneath the gray sky, rows of headstones standing like silent sentinels in the fading light. A cool breeze slipped through the trees, carrying the scent of damp earth and wilted flowers. Memorial Day had brought a few visitors earlier, flags planted, wreaths laid, but now it was just us and the quiet. Lily's hand rested warm in mine as we walked the gravel path, her step steady, mine less so. The city hummed in the distance, a faint reminder that life churned on, indifferent to the dead and the broken left behind. We stopped at the graves. Sarah and Ethan Thompson, their names etched in cold granite, side by side. Fresh dirt had settled, grass creeping in patchy tufts. I stared at the dates, the cruel math of lives cut short. My throat tightened, a familiar ache clawing up from my chest. I'd come here every year since it happened, but it never got easier. The guilt was a shadow, always there, darkening the edges of every breath. Lily squeezed my hand, her fingers threading tighter through mine. She didn't speak, didn't need to. She knew the weight I carried, the way it bent my shoulders, hollowed my eyes on nights when sleep wouldn't come. Her presence was enough a tether to the present, to the life I was trying to rebuild. I knelt, the grass cool against my knees, and traced Ethan's name with my thumb. 8 years old. He'd never get another birthday, another chance to scrape his knees or laugh too loud. Sarah wouldn't see him grow, wouldn't grow old herself. And Jake broken, locked away in a hospital bed, his mind shattered as badly as his body. I hadn't meant for this. Not them. Not like this. Still think it's my fault? I asked, voice rough, barely above a whisper. Lily crouched beside me, her hand on my shoulder, steady and warm. You didn't light the match, Nolan, but you played with fire. Her words were gentle but unflinching. The truth we both knew. You can't change it. You can only carry it. I nodded, the ache deepening. She was right. I'd pushed Amelia too far, twisted her pain into a weapon, and it had exploded in ways I couldn't control. But knowing that didn't erase the blood on my hands. It just made the stain harder to ignore. I stood, slow and stiff, like the weight of the graves anchored me to the earth. Lily rose with me, her arms slipping around my waist, her head resting against my shoulder. "You're not alone in this," she murmured, her breath warm against my neck. "We'll carry it together." Her words cracked something open inside me, a sliver of light in the dark. I turned to her, brushing a strand of hair from her face, my thumb lingering on her cheek. She leaned into my touch, eyes soft but steady. She'd seen the worst of me, the rage, the wreck I'd become, and she stayed. That meant something, maybe everything. I glanced back at the graves one last time, a silent promise hanging in the air. I'd never forget, never forgive myself entirely. But I'd try to live better, be better for them, for Lily, for the man I still hoped to be. We walked away, hand in hand, the wind picking up, rustling the leaves like a whisper of forgiveness I wasn't sure I deserved. But I'd take it anyway. It was all I had left.